Moving abroad won't fix your life. It might change it in ways you never expected. It might even be the best decision you ever make. But if you're hoping that moving to a new country will solve all your problems, I've got some bad news for you. That is not how this works. I was reminded of that recently while I was on YouTube watching a video by a British guy living in Cambodia. And he was talking about why some expats thrive and others fall apart. And even though Southeast Asia and Russia are obviously very different places, a lot of what he said really rang true to me. I've seen the same thing happen here in Russia. Again and again, I'm going to talk about it. Hi, my name is Johnny. I'm from England and I've been living in Moscow for 8 years. In that time, I've met every type of expat imaginable. Some are thriving, some are lost. Some have been here since the 1990s and are just completely jaded. Others arrived after 2022 and are still wide-eyed with enjoyment. And while this video is rooted in my personal experience of life in Russia, it applies to almost anyone who's left home looking for something more. And just a quick note, I will be using the word expat here in this video. I don't love it, especially because it's got baggage compared to the word immigrant. There's a class and racial aspect to this, but it's a useful shorthand for what I mean in this video, which is someone from the West who's moved abroad for a new life. And just to be clear, this of course isn't a negative video. I love living here in Russia and I think everyone should live abroad at some point in their lives. But over the years, I've watched a lot of people fall into the same traps here in Moscow, and I want to talk about them, not to judge, but just to, warn you guys, especially those who might watch my videos, thinking about coming here and might make the same mistakes. And also because I've seen so many friends from the UK, people I grew up with, they're tired of the grind back home, they want out, and sometimes they think moving to Russia, or moving to anywhere really, will fix everything, and it won't. So in this video, I'll be talking about 5 ways living abroad can break you and how not to let it. Let's start with my first point, the most obvious one, and that's that so many people move abroad not because they're chasing something, but because they're trying to escape. They've just come out of a relationship, often a messy divorce, or they're sick of their job, the 9-to-5 corporate grind, or they've fallen out with their family, or they feel like they're trapped in some dead-end, never-ending routine. And the idea of getting on a plane, landing in a completely different place, a completely different country, where nobody knows you, that's seductive. It feels like a clean slate. And for a while it really does work. When I personally first arrived in Russia, it was like stepping into a dream where everything is unfamiliar. You don't have any responsibilities. I didn't know how to do anything here. And there's a kind of freedom in that. Nobody has expectations of you because you're not from here. You're anonymous. And that can feel like a relief, a weight off your shoulders. But there's a danger in that freedom because after a few months, once the novelty wears off, the only thing left is you. And if you haven't dealt with whatever drove you to leave, it starts creeping back in. The same insecurities, the same addictions, the same patterns of behavior, they just have a new, probably more beautiful backdrop. And the worst part, now you've distanced yourself from anyone in your life who might have called you out on it. That's really the worst part of this all. You're in a place where no one really knows you. So it's even easier to lie to yourself. Because I didn't move to Russia to escape anything, but I still fell into that trap. I came back here after uni because I'd done a semester in St. Petersburg and I loved it. I've told that story many times on this channel. But instead of building something new, initially I tried to keep that old feeling alive. I was living like a student long after that phase was over in my life. No plan, no purpose, just floating. You really have to do the internal work. You have to know what you want out of your life, because geography changes won't fix what's going on in your head. And if anything, it just delays that confrontation, because you can run from your home, but you can never run away from yourself. You can never run away from what is inside here. The second point I want to talk about is stagnation, and particularly the way it creeps in as a side effect of freedom and comfort. Because here's the thing about moving abroad: the day-to-day pressures of life are lifted. Suddenly you're not trapped in the same competitive career ladder. You don't have to explain your life choices to your parents, your friends, other members of family. You're not expected to hustle in the same way. And a lot of people come to places like Russia, they find an easy job, teaching, freelance work, something flexible, and realize they can live quite well without pushing themselves too hard. And in the beginning, that's amazing. You really get to reclaim your time. You have no endless commutes anymore, no office politics. You spend your afternoons in cafes, you read more books, you can just go for a walk for a couple of hours without any stress, and you sort of feel like you've hacked the system. But that comfort has a cost. Without pressure, without external goals, people often stop growing and they drift into routines that feel good at first but become deadening. I know people who have literally lived the same year 5 times in a row. They go to the same pub with the same friends and they have the same mild complaints about bureaucracy or, I don't know, the weather. And they'll tell you things like, I love the lifestyle, but you can see there's like a flatness behind their eyes. Actually, I've felt it myself. There was one year within the last 8 when I realized I hadn't actually done anything new in months. I was just cycling through the same habits, the same bar, the same food, the same people, and it felt like being, I don't know, preserved or pickled, because I felt comfortable but lifeless. And that's the dark side of freedom, because without structure, some people thrive, but others atrophy, and you start avoiding challenges because you don't have to face them. You start, I don't know, you start turning down invitations. You become someone who used to be curious, someone who used to be ambitious, but isn't anymore. Because living abroad gives you the space to reinvent yourself. It's like starting university or high school. But if you don't use that space intentionally, you end up building a very cozy cage for yourself. It's a prison of your own invention. And thirdly, I want to talk about a subtle point, but it's a point I have noticed everywhere here in Russia. There are expats who live in a country physically, but never actually arrive. I'll explain that for you. They mentally live still in their home country. You see, you can spend years in Russia without really living in it. You speak English at home with your Russian girlfriend or wife who speaks perfect English. You hang out with, or mostly with, other foreigners. You go to restaurants with Western menus. You watch the same TV shows as your friends back home, and you follow the same political drama. You're technically here, but your mental world is somewhere else entirely. And even worse, some people start to build their identity around being a foreigner. It becomes a, I don't know what kind of brand, like I'm the American guy in Moscow, or I'm the British girl who moved to Russia. And that becomes that persona becomes a substitute for actual integration. You're not really living here, you're sort of performing the act of living here. I know people here in Russia who know more about Westminster and Washington DC than they do about their own district council in Moscow. People who rant about, I don't know, US campus politics, but they couldn't tell you the name of their building management company. Like, they left home, but emotionally they never unpacked. And there's another version of this too. I think I'll call it the reactionary expat, the one who's furious at the West and uses the new country, in this case Russia, as a prop for their anger. They don't really care about Russia. They just need it to symbolize everything that the West isn't. It's not curiosity, it's projection. But the truth is, you're not going to feel grounded and at home until you actually engage with the place around you. That means following local news. That means understanding how people think. That means learning how the system works, not just how to work around it. Moving abroad can give you a new identity, but not if you're just importing an old one and spelling it in the Cyrillic alphabet. Fourthly, that brings me on to another topic, which is language. I mean, this one's obvious, but it's so often ignored. If you don't learn the language, you're cutting yourself off from 80% of the life around you. And I don't mean just getting by with Google Translate, I mean really learning it, being able to handle bureaucracy on your own, be able to joke with strangers, read the signs without panicking, speak with confidence in front of people. Without that, you're always going to be reliant on someone else, your partner, your friend, I don't know, the HR rep from your company. And that dependence builds up over time. It limits where you can go, what jobs you can take, what relationships you can form. And you become isolated, maybe not socially, but existentially. Because there's a deeper layer to this too. Language opens up emotion. When I started thinking in Russian, I realized I wasn't just translating mentally from English to Russian, I was actually feeling different. I felt differently. There are ideas and expressions in Russian that just don't exist in English. The way people talk about nostalgia or pain or love, it's like different. And when you tap into the way Russians express feelings, your experience of life here shifts. And it's the same with culture, because I didn't grow up with Russian pop music or Soviet films, but they've become a part of how I understand the world around me here. You hear a song in a taxi and you realize, oh, this isn't kitsch, this is someone's childhood. And that connection builds empathy. I mean, when I'm in a club or a bar and Meladze comes on, you bet I'm singing those lyrics at the top of my voice. When you skip language and you skip culture, you miss the good stuff. You're like someone living in a city, but only using the airport lounge. Like you'll never feel at home if you don't learn the language of the house, which in this case obviously is Russian. And the fifth and final trap I want to talk about is maybe the saddest one. And it's about expats here who turn bitter. It's about expats who often start here with high hopes. They move here thinking Russia will be different, it'll be better, a place where things make sense, a place where people still have values, where a place where Westerners can come and they can leave back whatever they hated at home, whether that's, I don't know, wokeness or taxes or policies or whatever. But eventually they realize Russia is just a country. It has rules, dysfunctions, contradictions. It's not a utopia. And when that fantasy breaks, some people get stuck in this mental disappointment and they stop being curious. They laugh at newcomers for being enthusiastic. They mock people who still believe things can change. They become bitter spectators watching life from the side with crossed arms. And a lot of them turn inwards. They stop learning. They stop exploring. They live in the same apartment, watching the same news, hanging out with the same 1, 2, 3 people, and they complain that nothing is exciting anymore. They'll say, Russia was fun in the 1990s, but it's boring now. But look, the problem isn't the place, of course. The problem is them. They expected the country to carry the weight of their disillusionment. And when it couldn't, they gave up. And YouTube doesn't help. You see, a lot of the people struggling here, expats struggling here in Russia, are not visible. You don't see them making vlogs. They're not influencers. The people you can watch on YouTube are doing way, way better than most expats. They're just quietly stuck after a breakup, a burnout, some grand life change that didn't work out, and they don't know how to rebuild. And I've met those people. Some of them are wonderful, but they're running on empty, and they won't get out of that spiral until they stop blaming the place and start looking inward. So yeah, moving abroad can break you, but it can also make you. It depends on how you do it. Living in Russia totally changed my life, and I've grown more here than I ever did back home. It forced me to confront who I was. I had to learn a new language, understand a new culture, build a new life from scratch. And I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. But it didn't solve any of my problems. I had to do that all myself. So if you're thinking of leaving your home country, go. Move, try something new. Just don't expect the geography to do the work your own heart and mind haven't done yet. Because a new country can give you a sense of freedom, but only you can give yourself direction.